This is Jesse Hensley.
And this is Josh Turner.
Welcome to Turn Down for What?
Welcome back to Turn Down for What? On this week's episode, we are going to be discussing a few different news segments involving the electric flying car. Also discussing a little bit further on the battery conversation that we had last week. The main topic of today is virtual power plants. And then we will have a guest on, like we've been doing, who is a Lightning driver similar to us, drives an XLT standard range.
Oh, okay. So apparently we've not discussed the Lightning enough. So now we have to have somebody else.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to milk that one as long as we can.
Well, speaking of milk, have no segue for that one, but we'll go into our first topic. So new car company out here that is wanting to sell a $300,000 car that is considered a flying car with a 110-mile range in the air and I believe 200 miles range on the ground. So do you trust your ability to also fly a car when you're driving on the road? Is that something that you want to do?
My guess is if you're going to own that vehicle, in order to leave the ground, you're going to have to use it in the United States. You'll have to have a pilot's license.
Yeah, and that's ALOF Aeronautics. I hope.
ALOF is it ALEF?
I'm thinking they're thinking Aloft. You know, now it's up there in the air. So,
but if it's German, ALEF,
you're going to have to deal with that yourself. So, and it did get FAA approval over the last couple of weeks. So that is something that you might be able to look up and see. Kind of a unique design. I think we have it here so we could show what it's going to look like.
Is it, from what I've heard, it's a vertical takeoff, correct?
I think so, yes.
So my question would be, do you think that you would have to drive it to an airport and take off?
No.
Or do you think that you're going to be permitted?
You can. My guess would be like a helicopter. You can pretty much land a helicopter wherever you want to as long as you're clear. And I've had helicopters land, you know, on job sites.
Do you think you can pull up to a red light and then just go straight up in the air?
That's the question right there. So are you going to George Jetson this thing if you're in traffic and be able to just take off and go?
There was one gas-powered vehicle. I don't even remember what the brand was, but it came out and it was a car that had retractable wings that put in your garage and then they folded out.
Mm-hmm. That was on the last episode of what was it? Not Top Gear, but Grand Tour. So they had that vehicle on the Grand Tour recently. Very nice looking car. It had the wings and had the motor in the back. It's a pusher prop. You can take off from an airport. Again, am I going to trust being able to drive in the air as well as the ground? I don't think so. So I hope they do well. It looks like a very unique concept. Look up for that over the next few years. Maybe we'll have it. Maybe we won't. But I'm probably not going to get that one and test it.
Yeah, it was Terra Fugia, the one that I was referencing. And it was one of those things that it came out, I think the original announcement was like 10 years ago. Yeah. And it was a car with big old wings that had to fold up, but you had to take it to the airport because it required a runway. You had to gain speed, take off. I've not seen or heard of it, that much. But
see, I always wish that the '59 Cadillac would just drop their tail fins because it had enough wingspan there that it could have took off too. But
yeah, I mean that company, Terra Fugia, was founded in 2006. Looking it up here, it was a Chinese-based company, but it looks like, I mean, I've not heard much about it, but that's something that that tech space coming to the electric market. I mean, I think that it makes more practical sense to have a prop set up where the vertical take off and go. I mean, the image, which we'll show on the screen for YouTube, the image was rather unique. I think that it's something that that model will be attractive to some, but obviously the range is something that we're going to have to look at. I mean, 110 miles can get you some places, but it's not fully practical
My
yet.
guess is this is going to be for like traffic. So say you are in one of these high traffic areas and you're sitting
Get
in
from
traffic.
South Atlanta to North Atlanta.
Yeah, you're going to be able
minutes.
to say, okay, I got 5 minutes to get over there. Let me just raise up, land on the building, and be ready to go to work. So,
on the building.
And for
they're
$300,000,
going to have to come out with
where
regulations around where you can land.
Yeah, I'm sure as that develops. But if you went through the process to get your license, my guess is you're also going to understand everything to where you can do that safely.
You can't just land in a parking lot. That's not safe for everybody else with propellers and everything.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. See. That's something that I guess we'll have to find out.
Well, one of the next items is a large investment from a company in Brazil. So Warren Buffett and his Berkshire Hathaway has a large investment into BYD. Now, this is a Chinese EV maker. I believe it's one of the largest and produces the most EVs in the world right now. I'll have another picture. Very nice looking car. Don't know anything about him. Love, if anybody has someone who has driven or owns one of those, I would love to talk to them about it. But they're investing $620 million in Brazil, another big investment into that area in order to make these type of vehicles. So their lineup is extensive. I don't know if you've ever looked into them, but they have multiple different types of cars. Very fast growing company. And again, Berkshire Hathaway is an investor in that group. And I really do see them hitting the market in the U.S. fairly soon, especially if they're building one in Brazil. My feeling is that allows them to be in the North American, South American trade zones and will allow them to import fairly easy at that point. So I think that that's kind of the direction they're looking at the U.S. market that way, and a really nice looking vehicle. So, again, another vehicle coming into the United States maybe soon. I think that's good for everybody. It gives competition, probably lower cost and everything. So what's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I've not researched the BYD that much. And I mean, obviously, all of these different manufacturers are coming around, and you're seeing a lot of different production like we were discussing last year. I think Apple's going to come online. But there's several other ones that you've seen that are making announcements. Some of these might not be based for the United States. There's certain models that I've seen in European countries that are exclusive to Europe. And so that's something
kind of like the Renault you were talking about last week. So there's a Renault that looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But their association, obviously, with General Motors allows them to have the technology that comes from the batteries and the motors that are with them. But man, that car looks really good too.
And it's only in Europe for right now, but I mean, it could come this way. I mean,
and it's more of a supercar look to it as well. I would say it's very expensive, probably kind of like the 150, 200,000 range. I don't think they've priced that one yet. But
yeah, I mean, if the Lucid is going to be 200 for their sporty one, I'm sure that it's going to be quite.
It's going to be up there,
quite juicy.
And well, how much is the Cadillac that they were talking about? It's 300,000, isn't it?
For what?
The Cadillac, not the SUV, but the sports car Cadillac.
I don't know.
I think it's over 300,000 because we're talking about a competitor to Bentley and Rolls Royce, which used to be that competition for the upper market. But yeah, it came out and it looked really nice. If I'm not mistaken, it should be coming out very soon too. So,
did you see that Rolls Royce announced their EV?
Mm-hmm.
It looks pretty sharp.
Let me get my wallet out. So. Yeah.
The Rolls-Royce Spectre, ultra silent, move forward.
Look at the mileage on it, though. That's the problem. I think it's a lot less than I was expecting for that type of vehicle, but I do know that they're very heavy. But if you're going to be on the upper echelons of the automotive world, I would expect a lot larger range than what it was offering, and I cannot remember how much that is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that they're saying, as of right now, it looks like the estimate is 260.
Yeah. So I guess that's just so when you're in town and you're getting chauffeured around, your chauffeur can go charge it for you, and it's not that big a deal.
Base price, $422,000.
Yeah, I figured it would be up there.
But I mean, that's just going to be your appeal to your luxury drivers. But I mean, that's something that that's another dealership putting their name in the hat.
The boat tail they have or the drop heads, all of them look great. So,
did you see Tesla's production numbers?
No.
They announced, I think 2 days ago, July 2nd.
Thank you for giving me these notes when we were talking earlier. Thank you.
I'm adding these in.
Yeah, right that's fine.
Tesla came out and said that they exceeded their expectation. And in Q2 of this year, they produced 479,000 EVs in Q2.
Wow. Okay. That is very impressive.
460,000 were the Model 3 and Y, and 19,489 was the Model S and X. So obviously the cheaper models are obviously more widely appealing, but they've delivered 466,000 vehicles.
And see, that's great news, because when I was talking about this BYD, now BYD, going back to what Warren Buffett, that conversation, when I was looking at their numbers, they've doubled in the last year. So they've doubled from 134,000 to roughly 253,000 in production.
For the whole year.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea of the size of Tesla's sales right now. And it's probably
their manufacturing is at a peak.
Yeah. Oh, it's
500,000 a quarter. They're going to produce 2 million vehicles a year.
And I think they're really pushing hard for the same thing that Ford's looking at now with their designs, is less parts, more manufacturing. So some of the presses that and the molding tools that Tesla use will be able to mold one whole subunit in the rear and in one mold. So you're basically getting your entire rear structure in one mold versus multiple pieces and then assembled onto the line, tightened, and then have to do the maintenance on those systems and everything like that. So,
but if you damage one part, it makes it a little bit more tricky.
Well, that's why you don't want to run over things.
Yeah.
But, I believe that the aluminum molds and things like that have been some of the holdup for the Tesla truck, Cybertruck. So, but they also are making announcements on it that they do feel like September will be the day or the time that some of these will be released. I'm hoping. I know that I'm under 10,000. At least I feel like I'm under 10,000 because of the time that I put my reservation in and the systems that are online. You can go on and compare your VIN number, your order number. There's an algorithm or something somebody created that tells you where you're at. So hopefully we'll have an early model of that when it comes out. We can kind of look at it.
We'll do a review video and put that one up on our YouTube.
Absolutely. Would love to do that. So, but those numbers are insane.
Yeah. And another interesting fact was Tesla announced that their free color is changing from white to like their gray silver color. So I think it was for the two base models. I think it was for the 3 and the Y. Now the silver is what's the free color. You have to pay $1,000 to get the white color. Never been that case. It's always been white's free, but now they've changed that. Just an interesting fun fact.
I mean, I think Henry Ford said you can get any color you want as long as it's black for the Model A. So now you can get any color you want as long as it's silver.
Yeah.
So
and free. So silver's free, and then obviously the other colors are marginal compared to the cost of the vehicle. But
I like a silver car.
Yeah.
Mercedes, I've always loved the silvers that they use on their vehicles. I think that's their main color. So their national color for Germany, I believe, is silver as well. So kind of, I like France blue too, though. So
but
that gets into F1 and
BMW.
So last week we did discuss how Toyota is wanting to get into the solid state batteries, and there's a lot of controversy. Didn't expect a lot of pushback saying, "Oh, that's years and years and years away." 2028 is a pretty good time away, and everybody was saying that, well, that's really not something that is feasible soon. So BMW said, hold my beer and watch this. We're going to bring it out before 2025. So that's basically their announcement last week, was that they are now in deep partnership to create solid state batteries, and they feel like they'll have it out in 2025. And of course, all of the same things we discussed last week on the benefits of a solid state battery are what they feel like they can produce and also be the next step, I guess, for BMW. Again, BMW is a car company. I mean, I love BMW as well. I think they've kind of went away from what the old cars used to be. The old M series, you get into the modern ones, there's a lot of electronics I have issues with, a lot of cam phasers that have problems with, and getting into the drivability, though, you couldn't find a better handling or a better a driver's car, especially on the 35s and things like that. So the fact that they're now jumping feet first into this is great. Obviously, they've had some hybrids out there and a couple electrics. The i8 was a really cool looking car when it came out, and it was a hybrid technology, but it really did use a lot of the battery tech that they were building at the time as a test bed, I guess. So it'd be interesting to see what they can do with this.
Yeah.
So
very interesting. I mean, more solid state momentum, and I think that that's something that we'll see positive progress on, and maybe a good future adaptation the next 3-4 years for the evolution of batteries.
Yeah, we'll probably try to reach out to some friends at Oak Ridge National Labs, ONLR. I know that they have a battery program or something like that, and we'll see if they've been doing any work on the solid states, because having a good understanding of where that technology is today and where it's going would kind of help. Because when I look at the EV markets, everybody's using the same technology, and I think everybody says the same thing. Well, once batteries get to X, then I'll feel more comfortable. Once we get to the point where they're not so damaging to the environment to get the minerals out, then we'll be doing great. So I guess the question there is, when is that going to happen? What is that next step? Is that a feasible next step? And is it really that beneficial to everybody? So,
because I mean, talking about all these production numbers, that means that there's a lot of raw material that's happening.
A lot of material has to come out to make these cars, and at least Tesla, I believe their motors in the last call, going back to Tesla, the last investors meeting, they did say that their newest electric motor was not going to have any of the metals, any of the I can't think of the term of it that they use, but the particular materials that's needed to create those. They're going to straight iron and some of these easily
harvested materials.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what that tech does. But anyway, so that's kind of the news we have right now. Let's go ahead and switch gears into a couple topics that we have, and one of them is kind of relating to the heat wave that happened in Texas here recently, and everybody's asking about the grid, and they're asking how many electric vehicles are on that grid, and did it hurt, and did it cause people to have issues with their power there in Texas, and what is the solution for that? So we're going to start out with the solution and some of the terms that we'll probably be hearing over the next few years on what it is to use these trucks and cars as a battery backup source for your house, as well as for the grid itself. So virtual power plants, keep that in mind. That is now the new term that is being used by Duke Energy to describe the system that will take and harness different battery operated or different battery sources within a customer's home and allow that to be brought back to the grid in the event that that energy is needed.
We've always called it, I think, in our world, microgrid.
Yeah, microgrids.
They are referencing it as a virtual power plant.
Yeah,
which is true.
So on a microgrid, the difference between the two, a microgrid is when you set up a small, and a microgrid will be integrated into this, but a microgrid never took, my truck that is on my home and then paid me for the power that's in that truck. So what this is a system that will allow the energy company to then pull what energy they can off of my particular home grid, pay me a very large premium for it, and then sell that power to other areas either outside of that grid or outside that region that need it because they are having issues. So this ultimately will take down the power cost of areas that have to get that grid, and it could improve the markets that don't have that infrastructure in place. So it's definitely an opt-in type program. I think they're looking at in the next 5 years, just 3,500 homes is what they're targeting in order to get this system set up. But the basic of it is, say Tennessee is right next to, or one of the states next to Texas, Missouri, or one of these, have a bunch of vehicles on the grid that are connected, and it's at 3 p.m. and your truck's plugged in and you're fine. You have enough power in that area, but yet south of you in Texas, they are really needing that power. So you're looking at $4 or $5. I think I sent you a screenshot where somebody with a power grid or a solar farm in Texas was getting paid $5 per kWh.
Which is insane.
Yeah. So for reference, if we did an industrial project, we're looking at 20 cents per kWh or 21 cents.
Tops.
Yeah. At the most, you're looking at 21 cents per kWh. And here they're getting $5 per kWh. Shows at some areas now, I did read that they were getting up to 50 times the cost because it's supply and demand. And I think that's always been a concern is, will the supply and demand factor be damaged by electric vehicles now coming onto the market and having a higher demand for lower supply? And will that make everybody's power bills go up? You know, grandma who is in a house in her city that has a small power bill now because they're charging electric vehicles, her power bill goes up 20% because the demand is higher.
Yeah.
Is
I mean, with grid constraints, you know, I mean, we've already seen in our region, you know, the 7 states around us that are all relying on the dams and TVA, you know, power setup. All of those, you know, we had rolling blackouts last year around Christmas time, just exclusively because the power grid is seeing, you know, such an influx of individuals coming from out of the area, new homes coming on the market, and you know, it's the initiative to cut back on certain power generation, like coal power generation, but there's no alternative solution currently for power, and so we're seeing a strained grid in extreme cold, and in the extreme heat, we're seeing a strained grid, obviously, like you're seeing in Texas, and so the question then becomes, how do you resolve that? And what we've, you know, the issue that we have in place right now is, hey, let's bring electric vehicles to the market that, you know, on a road trip are consuming 3 times the amount that a house consumes in a day.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very interesting paradigm that we're having to face, where we're basically bringing electrical consumption to the grid and we don't have solutions, which is where I think these virtual power plants are an option. I mean, if 3,500 homes are brought to the market that have
anything, solar vehicles that have a battery backup.
But if you had 3,500 homes that had, you know, vehicles plugged in that had 75 kilowatt batteries, you're talking about 2 gigawatts of power, right? Mega.
Yeah, you're close.
Yeah. A lot of power.
A lot of power.
That's a lot of power.
And here it looks like $6.50 per kilowatt hour.
If I could get offered that, I would 100% take it.
Yeah, I can build anything you want to at that kind of price. You give me that kind of margin, I'm fine. I'll build solar. I'll build whatever you want to. So
yeah,
I'll have my kids on bikes connected to generators and trying to make power to service that. So, you know, again, it's a solution that they're looking at. And I think because of the Texas being in the news here recently, it kind of shows, you know, the grid was strained. I don't know how much, if the grid survived this heat wave. Now, here's the other part about the heat wave. You know, when I was growing up, 90 degrees, 100 degrees was not uncommon. You know, I mean, we would have summers where you'd have several 95, and you'd be outside playing all day. So now you're hitting all these different warnings. I never had those warnings. And now they're trying to, I think some of it is, oh, this is horrible. But it's summer, you know, that's what summer is. You're just, you've taken a lot of the power source out and you need to replace it with something. And now we're trying to come up with those solutions. How do we fix not having enough power for everybody while everybody is growing? So,
and that's something that with what we're doing, you know, we specifically have worked on, you know, our Power Up America, you know, charging grid. And one of the solutions that we've provided to this issue is basically energy independent charging stations. Which kind of goes in lines with this virtual power plants, because the virtual power plant isn't just homes that have vehicles plugged in at the house. They're talking about battery storage.
Yep.
And that's something that, you know, with us, our intent is to have, you know, some solar connected to some battery and still connected to the grid. But our goal is to provide the occupancy of that station completely off grid. That way you don't provide strain to rural America, because a lot of times, you know, the urban locations have more power grid infrastructure to handle that load. But when you get to urban America, Midwest, you know, we live in East Tennessee, you know, some of the demand in those regions need supplements. Texas, you know, in the urban areas is fine, but when you get out into the country, they may need power grid infrastructure improvements. And so that's where a solution like what we have, where you have, you know, the solar, the battery backup, the solar charges the battery The battery then is on standby to charge the vehicles day and night.
Yep.
And then you have the grid as a backup in the event that there is more demand, but it's something that you can charge the battery in non-peak hours. And that's something that power companies, excluding solar, can do, where they can actually have a battery, charge it during non-peak hours, and have that energy available for times of high demand. It's just a matter of bringing that infrastructure. And it seems like some of the funding that's coming from the federal government is starting to push those initiatives for some supplemental power production.
Yeah.
But it's something that, I think it was Elon that was basically saying that it doesn't take an astronomical amount of land compared to the United States to actually power the United States on solar.
Yeah, the problem is getting that one plot of land to give power everywhere. You just can't send
and
it out
spreading
that
that
way.
power around across the grid nationwide.
But the amount of space is not huge that's needed for that.
But where you act as this individualized locations where there's 5 acres here, 5 acres there, and it all supports the grid with this battery backup setup. It's the virtual power plants located throughout the region. If you can have one every 20, 30 miles, that provides you the ability to add to the power grid in times of demand, where if you have batteries that hold 5 megawatts of power spread throughout the grid, then, if you have 100 of those in a state, well, there's a ton of power on demand for times of high demand. And then, you can pay the consumer for it. That way you don't have power outages, but it also provides future proofing for, this increasing strained grid that we're seeing, because that's something that's an obvious concern.
And basically, at the end of the day, what does this do for the common person? Why does anybody care about this? And it basically, it's going to make your power bill cheaper. If we can get these established and you can have this grid, you're going to be paying less money is the goal of this entire program.
Or maybe just keep it the same instead of going up.
Yeah. Well, it's going to go up anyway. I mean, it's everything has went up. I went to, everything is going up right now. But now the other part of this is the impact on what is the electric vehicle impact on the grid in Texas. Let's just take Texas, for example, and then say, okay, we just had this heat wave. We had this big spike. What was the percentages of electric vehicles? How many electric vehicles is there? What was the impact over the weekend? Could you blame any of the problems on electric vehicles? And this comes from the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. So basically, Texas has a little over 200,000 vehicles, and they estimate that those 200,000 vehicles represents about 2% of the entire grid's impact when they are charging. So 2% is your kind of target number. That's a lot of power, obviously, for a full state, but if it's spread out, 2% is kind of a drop in the bucket, So is there plans that could be put in place to kind of prepare for that 2% today? Yes, I think that they've done that. Is there possibilities to where as that grows into a 10% or 25% impact, is 50% of the state being EVs going to be a much higher number? That number I don't have yet. So
what's interesting though is, for Texas, I was just curious and looked it up. From the DMV in Texas, there's 22 million registered vehicles in Texas.
Oh yeah, so you're looking
at less than 1% or 1% of the vehicles on the road.
And so represents 2% of the power grid.
If you get to the point that 20% of the road is EVs, then you're looking at 4 million, which then it means that you're taking up from 2% of the grid to, what's the math there?
No,
it would be an extra 10 times. So I mean, you're looking at 20% of the power grid.
Yeah, and it's not prepared for that today.
And that's where, like, if the EV agenda pushed, I mean, currently there's 22 million vehicles and 202,000 of them are EVs.
But
that's a drop. That's a drop in the bucket compared to what the industry's doing there. And so, I mean, obviously that there's going to be a grid concern coming.
But if you use these virtual power plants, each one of those vehicles then acts as its own power supplier that you'll be reimbursed at a much higher rate. And if you're on the northern part and the southern part of the state is getting hit with that shortage, you're going to be able to balance that out if you have your grid put in place with this virtual type of system.
Yeah.
So I think that even as you bring these onto the market, if you can create that possibility of buying that energy back from that vehicle for places that opt into it, that's going to be something. And then everybody's like, well, what if they do it without my permission? Well, unplug. You know, they can't take it out of the air.
Well, that's something you're opting into as well.
Now, could they eventually force you to plug your truck up or car up in order to get the power out of it? I doubt it. But if you're getting paid $6.50 per kWh,
I mean, it's very much like they do. I mean, I don't know if it's a nationwide thing, but our local power board offers this box that you connect to for your water heater, and they have the ability basically to shut down your water heater to basically save grid consumption. And they have incentives like, you know, basically coverage of your water heater when it goes out, or discounts, you know, around having that. But that's the same kind of thing. I mean, they are in essence shutting down your water heater in waves, basically, in order to save power. And so it's the same. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's an opt-in, and I'm sure you can opt out. But I mean, that's just an option to help save the grid.
I want to have that $851 that they would pay me for the power of my truck that I can charge back that night at a much lower rate. Give me $851
that's
a day.
A nice vehicle payment.
Yeah,
you know, made in one day.
Yeah, almost a full payment. Yeah. So definitely an opportunity there to change the technology that people are looking into to try to make this grid a lot more secure as we bring these EVs onto the market.
There's a lot more to talk about down that spectrum.
Oh yeah.
We'll stop for the day. We'll take a break, and we'll bring on our guest speaker for the day.
That'd be great.
All right, we're back, and we have Jeanette from Lockport, New York on the line. Are you there, Jeanette?
I'm here. Hello.
Awesome. Well, Jeanette is a Lightning owner similar to us. She has an XLT standard range model for the Lightning. What specifically drew you to the EV market?
I'd actually been looking for quite a while, and I have 3 kids, so it was the first vehicle that would comfortably hold us and groceries and things like that.
The topic of last week was frunks. How nice has that frunk been with a family?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I heard that they were talking about possibly getting rid of them, and I hope that they do not do that.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I use my frunk all the time, and I intentionally, anytime I go anywhere where there's a curbside pickup, I intentionally just pull up, pop the frunk, and just leave it there. Make it to where it's a statement piece for the parking lot.
I'm worried now if they're getting.
I always joke with my husband that when we go shopping, like, you gotta give me an extra 10 minutes because when I open the front, somebody's gonna ask me a question.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where's your engine in that thing? That's what I always say.
Yep.
My favorite thing is people are like, "Is that electric?" I'm like, "Come check out the engine on this thing." Pop that front open. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, this is your first EV, correct?
It is.
So how has the transition been from, gas powered to EV, where you're at?
I love it. So we do actually have a gas vehicle as well. I bought the standard range thinking that we wouldn't actually use it for regular truck things, and we've still been using it. We've been towing with it. We've taken a couple small road trips with it. I can charge at home, so we just charge it at night. It's great.
Okay. And with the towing experience, that's something that, I mean, obviously, I've heard a lot of people talk about and obviously have concern with the towing experience of the electric truck. From what I've seen, I've not done much towing myself with other than really light duty. But obviously, with towing, it seems like you don't feel your payload. It seems like it's a very seamless tow. But I've seen some concern with the range. What have you towed, and how's been your experience with that?
So we have a 25-foot camper, and we have a snowmobile trailer with snowmobiles. We have towed both. It definitely has a very limited range because if you stop at a charging station, they're not pulled through like a gas station, so you don't really have the ability to charge with the camper arm.
Yeah.
But we go camping within like 100 miles of the house. We can make it there, and then we plug the truck in with the camper while we're camping.
So with the standard range, you're going 100 miles for the thing. Are you kind of getting there with little battery remaining?
Very little. Yeah, I think the range is about half. So we've been around 100, 110, and we try to stay within 90 miles or so.
Is that highway driving or is it slower?
Mostly back road. Okay. Yeah, I think the highway would be a little bit lower.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think that's one improvement. I mean, I think in general, if you look at gas-powered vehicles, you lose range when it comes to towing things, but gas stations are a lot more convenient to get in and out of. And I think that's something that one of the topics that we've talked about recently is battery evolution. And it seems like, the Ram truck, for instance, is said to get 500 miles of range on their extended range. Well, I mean, I think that makes, even if it's half with towing, you could go 250 to 300 on a charge then, and that makes a huge difference when you're taking a road trip or towing something like, a camper.
I would love to see some of the chargers along the thruway and stuff be able to be a pull through. I think that would help significantly too.
Yeah. Our experience, I mean, they designed it for Teslas and for Nissan Leafs and things like that, where it's just pull up and charge. But I've seen more than once where you have at Lightnings and Rivians pulling up a load, having to drop it in the parking lot, go charge, and come back. Or they're cattywampus in some parking space to try to be creative. To try to
great word.
Yeah, to try to come in and charge. And so that's definitely something that pull through charging needs to be implemented for all future infrastructure.
And I don't know, I know you have a Lightning too. I don't know if you charge. I've actually had trouble with just my truck reaching the charging station, like the cord. It's too short.
It depends on the station. I mean, obviously some of those where they're located, unless you're facing it, they expect you to run it across your truck. If it's a pull up unit and stuff, those cables aren't necessarily the best.
I've had that problem my entire life.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, we have one of the test stations for Tesla. The Magic Dock is about half an hour from here. So I went out to try it just to see how it would work, and I was like over the curb. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't have any Magic Dock here yet, but it seems like the NACS is coming to. It looks like all Ford drivers are going to get that adapter for Tesla infrastructure, and it looks like Tesla's already putting some CCS on some of their stations. So hopefully that network will open up in a greater way to us in the next couple of years.
I think January, February of next year is when we're supposed to get our adapters.
Yeah.
So,
I've had pretty good luck. I know some people don't, but I've had pretty good luck with Electrify America too. So,
yeah, I mean, it's been hit or miss. I mean, the infrastructure is pretty much all you have as a CCS driver. I took a road trip from East Tennessee down to Florida and back, and, I literally, that was the only thing available. There was one stop that I found that was off network that was a fast charger that was not Electrify America, but
who was that? Was it?
It was run through the Florida Department of Transportation. It was some random charging infrastructure they had, but it seems like that's something that Electrify America is your current road trip experience. They have some other ones in some other areas, but for me, we take trips across Tennessee, and all we're really seeing for fast charging infrastructure is Electrify America.
Yeah.
But we have a bunch of ChargePoint up here too.
Yeah, and ChargePoint, there's a couple around. I know that Jesse had one over in North Carolina that was ChargePoint. I've not actually. I've seen a 75 kW ChargePoint, but I've not ever used a supercharger from ChargePoint. But anyways,
okay, yeah, there's a couple by us that are 350.
Yeah. And what overall, I mean, with your Lightning, is there anything that you wish would be different about the experience as a whole, or has it been pretty seamless so far?
It's been pretty seamless. I haven't had too many issues. I've had a couple software updates that kind of like messed with the mileage, and that was annoying because I wasn't sure how far I could actually go, but they seem to have fixed it in this week. I think it updated a couple days ago.
Yeah, it's like software update, range improvement, and all of a sudden it's reading 320. You're like, that's a lie.
Yeah, we're not getting that.
But yeah, I mean, around town I can get 350, with my real estate driving that I do. But when it gets time for road trips, it starts the day at 340. I'm like, that's not the case.
No, what is that mileage range? I guess we would be around the 2 kWh per mile. So that puts you down probably around the 240, 260.
Yeah, for a full battery. But yeah, I mean, that's something that tech. Obviously, range anxiety is a very real thing when you're dealing with inaccurate metering around the speed. But I think Ford is trying to get it to where if you use their navigation maps and if it senses you're going to be driving fast, it's supposed to be updating the map. But I haven't seen that fully yet.
I'm sure.
Well, I live in right outside of Buffalo, New York, so we get a lot of snow too. And sometimes in the winter, they'll show 230 on my standard range. I'm like, well, I'm clearly not getting that. So can you just tell me what I'm actually getting?
Speaking of that, I mean, with the, you get a lot colder weather than we get. Was the experience throughout the winter okay, or did you see a pretty significant drop with the cold weather?
I didn't actually think it was as bad as I was expecting. I pretty much was around like 170 most of the winter, so I only lost 60 miles.
Did you precondition, or was it all just straight, you get in and get that range?
I didn't precondition very often because I don't have a set work schedule. I leave at different times on different days, and I found it more annoying to try to go into the app and precondition. That is one feature I wish there was, just like a precondition now, like a half an hour before I was leaving.
Yeah. I concur. Just scheduling that in the app every day, it's different, and then you have to schedule it basically recurring. And so we leave for a road trip across town to, we went to Nashville, and I scheduled for 5:30 in the morning. And the next week at Wednesday morning at 5:30 in the morning, my truck's up and preconditioned, and I'm not going anywhere. So that's
yeah. I tried it for a little bit. And I was like, this isn't working. I'm just going to turn this off. So
yeah, I mean, as long as you don't need.
A couple times when I knew I was going to need the range, I did try to turn on the preconditioning, but other than that, I just started it.
What vehicle do you have your sights on? Any other vehicles, or is as of right now, are you really happy with the Lightning?
I really like the Lightning. I haven't used the bed that much because the front has been able to hold everything that I've needed. So I actually think I might go with an Explorer when they come out.
Yeah. I think they're coming
just a little more family friendly.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to being where you are, we did not have much snow this year, which is kind of rare for our region. Were you able to get your truck out into the snow? And if you did, how was its traction control in comparison to other vehicles you've had up in that area?
It was really good. I've had, several different cars over my life, and it was definitely in the top 3.
Oh.
It's really heavy, so it just goes through everything. I didn't have any issues. I think I'm gonna need new tires this year already. So we put a lot of miles on, and
sounds like somebody I know.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But
I've got 23,000 miles on my truck, and I need tires now. So
yeah, so I still have the stock tires on. So I think I'll switch to either snow tires or all weather and see if that makes a little bit of a difference. But I did not have any issues this year, and we actually had a blizzard that I ended up driving in the next day, and there was like over a foot of snow on the road, and we had no problems.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all-wheel drive. So I mean, like, you're getting full power on all the tires at all time, but then the weight of it does make sense.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we didn't have it. Literally had no snow this year, which is a rare thing for us in East Tennessee. So I didn't get a chance to experiment in the snow. But
we had a total of almost 15 feet, but it snowed like 7 feet, and then it melted 4 days later. It was crazy.
I'm a football fan, and I saw the images of the Buffalo Stadium when that blizzard hit. Was that the same one?
Oh yeah, we were actually just north of the snow, so we went to Detroit for the game. We're like, yeah, we can get out, we'll go. Yeah, we drove across Canada.
That's crazy. Yeah,
but
well,
for the one blizzard, we had actually lost power, and I used it to charge. We did not set up the whole house charging, but I just ran an extension cord, and it was great just to keep the fridge going.
Oh yeah. I did the same thing. I didn't want to necessarily justify. I mean, especially in our area, I don't lose power at my house that much, and I couldn't.
Yeah, we don't either. And when we do, it's usually just a short amount of time.
Yeah, I couldn't justify $4 or $5 grand just for that convenience of having that 5-10 minutes every here and there.
Yeah,
it's something that's nice to have. But yeah, any other thoughts about your driving experience or anything that you want to say about owning an EV in general to our listeners?
Oh boy. I think that everyone should just try to drive one. We've gotten a lot of, even my husband, when we first bought it, was kind of like, no, I don't get it. And now he's like, it's great. It does, everything. I think there's a little bit of a stigma around it, and people should just give it a chance.
Yeah.
And see, I know it's not for everyone. I know if you're taking really long road trips, it can be inconvenient, but I think it's coming. I think the infrastructure's there when they hook up with Tesla, things like that.
Yeah, I think that I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I was excited to get it just because of how much money I was spending on gas. But the first time I put my foot to the metal there, and I got to actually experience the power behind electric, it was something that became rapidly addictive. And I've owned my truck for very close to a year now. And
yeah, I'm just about coming up on a year too.
It still doesn't get old. Every single thing.
It does not.
It's quiet. It's fun. It's smooth. I mean, compared to my F-150 I drove before, it's a lot. The independent rear suspension makes it just float down the road. I mean, it's a great drive experience overall. And I mean, I've not had.
Yeah, the kids always ask to take my truck on road trips just because it's so much quieter. My husband has a regular gas F-150, and they're like, it's so noisy now.
Yeah, it's true.
And slow. It's either slow. It's a V8, right?
Yeah. Stupid V8s, I'll tell you what. But yeah, well, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's pretty much it. A couple housekeeping notes. We do have our website online, turndownforwhattpodcast.com. So if you have any questions, you can actually go on there and fill out a inquiry. If you're interested in joining the podcast, you're welcome to reach out via our website, turndownforwhattpodcast.com. We are also, if you desire to watch the podcast, we're on YouTube, and you can subscribe to us there. And you can follow us on socials, which would be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Sounds like you copied everything. You're good.
We're good. Well, we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much. It's been Turned Down for What?